Hi everyone, so today we're going to be doing a 2020 election prediction purely based on the current Donald Trump approval ratings, which you can see on that screen there. I get my data here from Morning Consult. So how this is going to work is there's going to be 4 categories. Safe is if Trump's approval rating for Trump, the safe red states means his approval rating is plus 15 or more. The likely states means it is plus 10 or through to plus 14. The leaning states means that it is from plus 5 to plus 10. And the tilt states means it's from plus 1 to plus 5. And then a pure toss-up state I'm just going to leave like that. And then the same for the Democrats. So if Idaho was minus 15 for Trump, minus 10 for Trump, minus 5 for Trump, and then minus pretty much anything else there. So those, of course, aren't the actual states that we will be using. So we're going to start off going from west over to east. So we're going to be going Alaska, Hawaii. Then we're just going to pretty much be going here and then down the Red Wall in the south and then into the northeast and then into the Midwest. So starting off, it's not looking too good for Trump looking from an approval rating standpoint. If we go ahead to the January 2017, this was the first approval rating done. He was just inaugurated. We can see that the only states that disapprove of him, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maryland, California, and Hawaii. Those are the only states that actually disapprove of him, whereas now you can see that a lot more states now disapprove of him, as you can see by all of that red. But of course, as shown by this graph, approval ratings can change, and they can change quite drastically. You could see in the first few months, Trump maintained a strong approval rating in these 50 states, but then it started to slip in the summer of 2017. We started to see somewhat of an electoral map type one. His approval ratings did change somewhat in the beginning of 2018, but since then it's pretty much stayed quite the same. And then now in January 2019, we can see it pretty much take a big tumble in terms of his approval rating. But again, they can change. At this point in Obama's presidency, he was at, I think right now Trump's approval rating is in the mid-40s right now. Obama's approval rating, I believe, is in the mid to late 40s at this point in his presidency, and he still overwhelmingly won re-election. But Trump seems like a different kind of candidate. It seems that there's too many people who just strongly disapprove of him and will not vote for him absolutely. And so it may be difficult for him to win re-election, but again, they can change, and we'll have to wait until 2020 to get a better idea of that. So we're going to be filling out the electoral map purely based on his approval ratings. This is not my prediction. I want to make that clear. This is not a 2020 election prediction whatsoever. This is not what I think is going to happen. I think, they definitely can change. And yeah, we're going to be going in and filling in some of the first states. So Hawaii, we can see that in Hawaii, actually I think it's a better idea if we just go alphabetical. So if we go into the state of Alaska, we can see the January 2019 the nets. It actually might. Yeah, so we're actually just going to use this because I think that would just be easier. So Alaska is currently -1 for the president, so this would move into the tilt Democratic column. Again, this is not a prediction. Oh no, it is a net 1 approval rating for the president, so it would actually move into the president's column. Looking at Hawaii, Trump underwater there by 29, overwhelmingly Democratic, not needing much explanation there. In California, -30. Washington and Oregon are negative 23, 27 respectively, so those also both go into the safety column. In Nevada, this one surprised me a bit. He's underwater by 13 in what some consider a swing state, and some actually think it may be able to flip to Trump one more time. But right now he's underwater by 13, so that moves into the likely Democratic column. In the state of Arizona, he's underwater by 7, so that moves into the likely Democratic column as well. Again, this is not a prediction. Utah underwater by 6. Again, definitely not a prediction. Utah moving into the likely Democratic column. Idaho positive 15, so that moves into Trump's safe column. State of Montana above water by 1, so that moves into Trump's tilt column. In the state of Wyoming, he's above water by a whopping 31 points, moves into, of course, Trump's safe column. North Dakota and South Dakota approve of Trump by 4 and 6 respectively, so North Dakota would move into the tilt Republican column, South Dakota into the lean Republican column. In the state of Nebraska, it's a net 0, so not approved or disapproved in the state of Nebraska. If we go down to the state of Nebraska, 48 to 48, margin of error by 2. I would put this in Trump's column just because I think that if you're on the line, it's probably going to go to the incumbent, but I'm basing it purely off approval ratings, so unfortunately that won't be able to do. So Kansas, we can say, will go into the tilt Republican column. In Oklahoma, above water by 10, that moves into the likely Republican column. State of Texas, underwater by 1, so that narrowly goes into the Democrats' tilt column. In Colorado and New Mexico are underwater by 18 and 18 respectively. That means both of these states move into the safe Democratic column. Again, not a prediction at this point. Louisiana and Arkansas both strongly approve of the president, so we're going to be putting Louisiana into the safe Republican column, Arkansas into the likely Republican column, which actually slightly shocks me. I would have thought Arkansas would have a stronger approval rating than just 10. If we go into the Arkansas approval rating, 43% of their voters disapprove of him. That's somewhat surprising. If we go into the Deep South, so these are all areas where Trump is approved of quite strongly. Mississippi by 13, Alabama by 20. So we can say that Mississippi moves into the likely Republican column, Alabama into the safe GOP column. In the state of South Carolina, above water by 9, so we can move that into the leaning Republican column. In Florida, he's underwater by 4, so that would move into the Democrats' tilt Democratic column. Georgia also underwater by 2, so that also moves into the Democratic column. State of North Carolina, like Florida, underwater by 4, also moves into the tilt Democratic column. So 213 for the generic Democrats, 70 for Donald Trump. Again, purely based off approval ratings. I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments saying, this is unrealistic, this is never going to happen. I agree. I don't think Texas is flipping. I don't think Utah is flipping. And many of these ruby red Republican states are only narrowly going to the president. Again, not a prediction. I really want to stress that point. So moving into the state of Tennessee, 11 electoral votes above water actually by 12, so that moves into the president's likely column. If we move into the state of Kentucky, above water by 14, West Virginia above water by 24, Kentucky moves into the likely Republican column, West Virginia into the safe Republican column. So in Virginia, underwater by 10, Trump's approval rating. So we can say that would move into the Democratic column, likely margin. Moving into, we're actually going to go up into the northeast, so we're going to start off in Maine, work our way down, and then move into the heartland. So Maine underwater by 11, that would move into the Democratic column. I'm not going to break it down by congressional districts, just because it's easier not to do that, and I don't have specific approval ratings for the congressional districts. In New Hampshire, this is a swing state. Shocked me a lot. Underwater by 18. That's not good for the president. That moves into the safe Democratic column. The state of Vermont underwater by 35. No surprise. Bernie Sanders' home state. That moves into the safe Democratic column. In New York, underwater by 29, and Massachusetts underwater by 31. Of course, both these states moving into the safe Democratic column. Rhode Island and Connecticut both disapprove of the president by 19 and 24 respectively. They both move into the safe Democratic column. In New Jersey, underwater by 20. Delaware underwater by 15. Both of these states move into the safe Democratic column. And in the state of Maryland, underwater by a whopping 30 points. Not looking too good for the president, looking ahead on that front. So I don't think they did DC. Oh no, maybe they did. Okay, so they did do DC, which is good, because so if I can do math, that gets us to 71, 70, 65, underwater by 65, so of course DC moving into the safe Democratic column. So now we just need to fill in the heartland of the country. So we're going to go Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Missouri. So these states, Democrats all did quite well in the 2018 Senate and governor election, with the exception of Indiana and Missouri. So yeah, so we're going to go through those. So Pennsylvania, underwater by 10. We can say that that one would go into the Democratic column by a likely margin. State of Ohio, underwater by 6. That would move into the Democrats' leaning column. In the state of Indiana, oh no, we were going to do Michigan first. Michigan, underwater by 16. That moves into the safe Democratic column. Actually, 16 just goes into the safe column, barely. Indiana, above water by 4. Good news for the president. He would win their tilt column. Illinois, underwater by 23, moving into the safe Democratic column. And in the state of Wisconsin, also same like Michigan, underwater by in the safe column. So Wisconsin moves into the safe column. Minnesota, of course, underwater by 19, moves into the safe Democratic column. Iowa, underwater by 14. That surprised me again. That would narrowly move into the Democrats' leaning column, but very close to being in the safe column. And Missouri, underwater by 2. That narrowly moves into the Democrats' tilt column. So this is our final electoral map. 428 electoral votes for the generic Democrat, 105 for President Trump, 5 pure toss-ups. Again, I really need to stress this point. This is not my prediction. It's not what I think is going to happen in 2020. If that was the case, if I did my prediction, of course I wouldn't have Texas going to the Democrats. I wouldn't have Missouri going to the Democrats. I wouldn't have many of these Ohio, Iowa, North Carolina, stuff like that going to the Democrats, and the margins for Democrats I would also probably decrease, especially in these Rust Belt areas and also out in the West. There's a lot of people who don't approve of Trump but aren't all that necessarily fond of the Democratic Party. Places like Arizona, places like Texas, definitely places like Utah, etc. So yeah, 428 for the generic Democrat, not a prediction. I'm just trying to aggregate that information to you in a meaningful and in a simple fashion. So thank you for watching this video. Comment down your suggestions below, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.